Hello, everybody. This is The Poison Tree by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay. Chapter 1, Nagendra's Journey by Boat. Nagendra Nathadatta is about to travel by boat. It is the month of Foisto, between May and June, the time of storms. His wife, Surja Mukti, had adjured him, saying, "Be careful. If a storm arises, be sure you fasten the boat to the shore. Do not remain in the boat." Nagendra had consented to this. Otherwise, Surja Mukti would not have permitted him to leave home, and unless he went to Calcutta, his suits in the courts would not prosper. Nagendranatha was a young man, about 30 years of age, a wealthy zemindar in Zilla Govindpur. He dwelt in a small village which we shall call Harapur. He was traveling in his own boat. The first day or two passed without obstacle. The river flowed smoothly on, leaped, danced, cried out, restless, unending, playful. On shore, herdsmen were grazing their oxen, one sitting under a tree singing, another smoking, some fighting, others eating. Inland, husbandmen were driving the plough, beating the oxen, lavishing abuse upon them, in which the owner shared. The wives of the husbandmen, bearing vessels of water, some carrying a torn quilt or a dirty mat, wearing a silver amulet round the neck, a ring in the nose, bracelets of brass on the arm, with unwashed garments, their skins blacker than ink, their hair unkempt, formed a chattering crowd. Among them, one beauty was rubbing her head with mud, another beating a child, a third speaking with a neighbor in abuse of some nameless person, a fourth beating clothes on a plank. Further on, ladies from respectable villages adorned their ghats with their appearance, the elders conversing, the middle-aged worshipping Shiva, the younger covering their faces and plunging into the water. The boys and girls screaming, playing with mud, stealing the flowers offered in worship, swimming, throwing water over everyone, sometimes stepping up to a lady, snatching away the image of Shiva from her, and running off with it. The Brahmins, good, tranquil men, recited the praises of Ganga, and performed their worship, sometimes as they wiped their streaming hair, casting glances at the younger women. In the sky, the white clouds float in the heated air. Below them fly the birds, like black dots. In the coconut trees, kites, like ministers of state, look around to see on what they can pounce. The cranes, being only small fry, stand raking in the mud. The dahuk, merry creatures, dive in the water. Other birds of a lighter kind merrily fly about. Market boats sail along at good speed on their own behalf. Ferry boats creep along at elephantine pace to serve the needs of others only. Cargo boats make no progress at all. That is the owner's concern. On the third day of Nagendra's journey, clouds arose and gradually covered the sky. The river became black, the treetops drooped, the paddy birds flew aloft, the water became motionless. Nagendra ordered the manji to run the boat inshore and make it fast. At that moment the steersman, Rahamat Mullah, was saying his prayers, so he made no answer. Rahamat knew nothing of his business. His mother's father's sister was the daughter of a boatman. On that plea he had become a hanger-on of boatmen. An accident favored his wishes, but he learned nothing. His work was done as fate willed. Rahamat was not backward in speech, and when his prayers were ended he turned to the Babu and said, "Do not be alarmed, sir, there's no cause for fear." Rahamat was thus brave because the shore was close at hand and could be reached without delay, and in a few minutes the boat was secured. Surely the gods must have had a quarrel with Rahamat Mullah, for a great storm came up quickly. First came the wind. Then the wind, having wrestled for some moments with the boughs of the trees, called to its brother the rain, and the two began a fine game. Brother Rain, mounting on Brother Wind's shoulders, flew along. The two together, seizing the treetops, bent them down, broke the boughs, tore off the creepers, washed away the flowers, cast up the river in great waves, and made a general tumult. One brother flew off with Rahamat Mullah's headgear. The other made a fountain of his beard. The boatmen lowered the sail, the Babu closed the windows, and the servants put the furniture under shelter. Nagendra was in a great strait. If, in fear of the storm, he should leave the boat, the men would think him a coward. If he remained, he would break his word to Sir Jamukti. Some may ask, what harm if he did? We know not, but Nagendra thought it harm. At this moment Rahmat Mullah said, Sir, the rope is old. I do not know what may happen. The storm has much increased. It will be well to leave the boat. Accordingly, Nagendra got out. No one can stand on the river bank without shelter in a heavy storm of rain. There was no sign of abatement. Therefore, Nagendra, thinking it necessary to seek for shelter, set out to walk to the village, which was at some distance from the river, through miry paths. Presently the rain ceased, the wind abated slightly, but the sky was still thickly covered with clouds. Therefore both wind and rain might be expected at night. Nagendra went on, not turning back. Though it was early in the evening, there was thick darkness, because of the clouds. There was no sign of village, house, plain, road, or river, but the trees, being surrounded by myriads of fireflies, looked like artificial trees studded with diamonds. The lightning goddess also still sent quick flashes through the now silent black and white clouds. A woman's anger does not die away suddenly. The assembled frogs, rejoicing in the newly fallen rain, held high festival, and if you listened attentively, the voice of the cricket might be heard, like the undying crackle of Ravana's funeral pyre. Amid the sounds might be distinguished the fall of the raindrops on the leaves of the trees and that of the leaves into the pools beneath, the noise of jackals' feet on the wet paths, occasionally that of the birds in the trees shaking the water from their drenched feathers, and now and then the moaning of an almost subdued wind. Presently Nagendra saw a light in the distance. Traversing the flooded earth, drenched by the dripping from the trees, and frightening away the jackals, he approached the light, and on nearing it with much difficulty saw that it proceeded from an old brick-built house, the door of which was open. Leaving his servant outside, Nagendra entered the house, which he found in a frightful condition. It was not quite an ordinary house, but it had no sign of prosperity. The door frames were broken and dirty. There was no trace of human occupation. Only owls, mice, reptiles, and insects gathered there. The light came only from one side. Nagendra saw some articles of furniture for human use, but everything indicated poverty. 1 or 2 cooking vessels, a broken oven, 3 or 4 brass dishes. These were the sole ornaments of the place. The walls were black. Spiders' webs hung in the corners. Cockroaches, spiders, lizards, and mice scampered about everywhere. On a dilapidated bedstead lay an old man who seemed to be at death's door. His eyes were sunk, his breath hurried, his lips trembling. By the side of his bed stood an earthen lamp upon a fragment of brick taken from the ruins of the house. In it the oil was deficient. So also was it in the body of the man. Another lamp shone by the bedside, a girl of faultlessly fair face, of soft starry beauty. Whether because the light from the oilless lamp was dim, or because the 2 occupants of the house were absorbed in thinking of their approaching separation, Nagendra's entrance was unseen. Standing in the doorway, he heard the last sorrowful words that issued from the mouth of the old man. These 2, the old man and the young girl, were friendless in this densely peopled world. Once they had had wealth, relatives, men and maidservants, abundance of all kinds. But by the fickleness of fortune, one after another, all had gone. The mother of the family, seeing the faces of her son and daughter daily fading like the dew-drenched lotus from the pinch of poverty, had early sunk upon the bed of death. All the other stars had been extinguished with that moon. The support of the race, the jewel of his mother's eye, the hope of his father's age, even he had been laid on the pyre before his father's eyes. No one remained save the old man and this enchanting girl. They dwelt in this ruined, deserted house in the midst of the forest. Each was to the other the only helper. Kunda Nandini was of a marriageable age, but she was the staff of her father's blindness, his only bond to this world. While he lived, he could give her up to no one. There are but a few more days. If I give away Kunda, where can I abide? Were the old man's thoughts when the question of giving her in marriage arose in his mind. Had it never occurred to him to ask himself what would become of Kunda when the summons came? Now, the messenger of death stood at his bedside. He was about to leave the world. Where would Kunda be on the morrow? The deep, indescribable suffering of this thought expressed itself in every failing breath. Tears streamed from his eyes, ever restlessly closing and opening, while at his head sat the 13-year-old girl like a stone figure, firmly looking into her father's face, covered with the shadows of death. Forgetting herself, forgetting to think where she would go on the morrow, she gazed only on the face of her departing parent. Gradually, the old man's utterance became obscure. The breath left the throat. The eyes lost their light. The suffering soul obtained release from pain. In that dark place, by that glimmering lamp, the solitary Kundanandi, drawing her father's dead body onto her lap, remained sitting. The night was extremely dark. Even now raindrops fell, the leaves of the trees rustled, the wind moaned, the windows of the ruined house flapped noisily. In the house, the fitful light of the lamp flickered momentarily on the face of the dead, and again left it in darkness. The lamp had been long exhausted of oil. Now, after 2 or 3 flashes, it went out. Then Nagendra, with noiseless steps, went forth from the doorway.